Welcome to Mediumship Moments with psychic medium Kim Durham. Join her as she shares her personal journey with mediumship, connects with your loved ones, and discusses topics dealing with spirituality.
Welcome to Mediumship Moments. This podcast is all about the spiritual realm. I'm your host, Kim Durham. I am a second generation psychic medium. Sometimes I talk about, murder cases, missing persons. I may talk about what it's like to work as a professional medium, communicating with those that have crossed over. I touch upon, hopefully, all kinds of different topics in the spiritual realm. Today, I wanted to touch upon Mercury in retrograde. Easy for you to say, right? Mercury in retrograde. It's coming again. Yep. November 9th through the 29th of 2025, it will affect you Saggies out there. So I thought I would give you some, idea, breakdown of exactly what's going on, walk you through the science behind this strange little cosmic illusion. And of course, share some practical, slightly playful, if you will, on how to ride out retrograde with a bit more clarity, ease, and maybe even a laugh or two. Mercury in retrograde. So here's the deal, right? So planets usually, and this is we're going a little astrology 101. Planets usually cruise around the skies in a nice little predictable path. Okay. But a few times a year, Mercury seems to hit reverse. Actually, spoiler alert, it is not going backwards. It's not driving with the cosmic Saturns on, going backwards. What's really happening is all about perspective. And that perspective is how Mercury moves around the sun. When it does that, it actually moves faster than Earth does around the sun. So when Earth, catches up to Mercury in orbit, it creates this, if you will, optical illusion where Mercury looks like it's going backwards. I'll give you an example. You ever been sitting in your car and the car next to you starts to move and you're like, oh my, wait. And for a second, you think you're rolling backwards? You ever have that illusion? God, that freaks me out. It happens to me quite a bit. That's kind of like what Mercury is doing, the optical illusion that it's going backwards. So when Mercury's in retrograde, it lasts for about 3 weeks at a time. And it happens 3 to 4 times a year, depending upon what sign you're in. So for you Saggies, it's about to happen again. And again, that affects that sign the most, but all of us, astrologically speaking, will feel the effects of Mercury in retrograde, just not as strong as the Saggies will. Let me give you an example, right? So for those that are feeling like, you know, what does Mercury do? Well, it that planet keeps our conversations flowing, it keeps our travel plans on track, and it keeps our tech running. So when it goes retrograde, things can feel a little off. Gosh, boy, I feel it a lot, and I'm wondering if you do too. For example, you might notice that you have more misunderstandings with people. You just your day to day conversations. You're like, I don't I don't think we're on the same page, or that's not what I meant, or it just seems to be difficult. Travel plans that hit unexpected snags. And let's face it, today traveling is a bit of a crapshoot, and I just say that. We just don't have enough air traffic controllers, delays. You could have a delayed flight or a last minute rescheduling of plans. In fact, for me, because I travel so much, my assistant makes sure, like, she'll look at the schedule and go, "Up, Kim." And it's not that she's setting an intention; it's a heads up because it affects me, and I've seen it time and time again. I come from the science background that I'd like to see something critical behind it, credible, research wise. But I got to tell you, folks, Mercury in retrograde, part of me just messes up my travel plan something fierce. Let me give you another one, technology. In fact, when I was filming this and trying to set up, I mess up technology all the time, but it's even more so when Mercury is in retrograde. So let's talk about this. You might notice that the technology is not working. It hits snags. Um, and for instance, more drop calls by far. You'll be talking to somebody on the phone. A lot of us speak. We don't really have landlines, and you're on the phone, and call gets dropped. And you're like, I don't. I was talking, and then they're not there anymore. Also, um, Mercury retrograde can freeze your computer. You're sitting there and you're working away, and you're like, this is great, and then all of a sudden you can't do a damn thing, and you're like, well, what happened? I I was on a groove. I was getting some things done. Frozen computer. Lost emails. Yep. You just it was there, and poof, it's gone. I can do that without Mercury being in retrograde, but it's a talent of mine. But really, one of the fan favorites or not is the Wi-Fi issues. And like I said, I notice when I'm recording and trying to set up that when it's Mercury in retrograde, I'm going to have Wi Fi issues. I'm going to have drop calls. I'm going to have technology issues. It really affects those of us that work using technology, which is a lot of us, right? Um, so when I talk about also the technology, the communication part is huge. Remember when I touched upon it earlier when I said, "Well, you're having a conversation, and I don't think that's what I meant." And are they taking it the wrong way? And it seems that there's an awkwardness to communicating, and you're like, was it something I said? Misunderstandings, and a big one: accidental text being sent to the wrong person. Mhm. Careful, careful. Here's some more tidbits and things you can look forward to. You might also notice some mental fog as well. And I'm just going to put it out there, ladies. It is not the perimenopausal fog. Mm-mm. No, this is different. Yay. Two for the price of one. So you might see yourself having difficulty focusing on something or second guessing yourself. As I've always said, sit with your psychic center, your gut over that when you make a decision, and don't second guess. If it feels right in the gut, you go with it. But Mercury can throw this off. And it's also something about past coming forward. So don't be surprised if people or unresolved situations from the past suddenly resurface unexpectedly. You're like, I thought we talked about that. I thought that was done. Or, oh, we have to go over, geez, what happened Christmas 19, uh, 2023. And before we, sit and have this conversation, it just seems everything's more difficult. Conversation, communication, technology. Uh, but really, and if you're getting a DM, I'll just throw that out there. Yes, it could even mean you get a DM from an ex. Yeah, I know. Just wanting to check in. Well, could be a blast from the past, but if they're in your past, they're there for a reason, people. Yep. What's that saying? Those that refuse to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Yeah, don't repeat your history. Anyway, uh, but the spiritual and astrological purposes of retrogrades aren't meant to punish us. They're really not. Although I'm making it out to sound hellish, and it can be. They're actually, if you will, opportunities. Okay, as scary as Mercury in retrograde can be or might sound, it really invites us to, in a way, slow down and take a look at the bigger picture. It gives us this chance to try. Um, to catch our mistakes that we'd normally miss. So it's almost like, I know I spoke about it being a fog, if you will, but um, it's more the slowing down causes us to pick up things we normally wouldn't. And as it pushes us to revisit our past, it's asking us to clear up some of those old misunderstandings, right? It's almost like cleaning out your spiritual closet. Anybody else cleaning out there? You wait until spring. I'm getting rid of a whole bunch of stuff. I am. I am sitting out. Heard. If I haven't worn it this week, this month, or this year, it's going. I donate. But anyway, so let's talk about how another positive, if you will, gives us a chance, right, to to clear out our misunderstandings. It also gives us an opportunity to reconnect with old friends. Gosh, I miss some of my friends out there. I do. I love my friends. To me, they're jewels in our life. And some friends are chapters in our life, and that chapter moves on. But I'm blessed to have my core, my tribe that I love to pieces. So if given get all of a sudden you find yourself reaching out to your friends and go, let's go out to dinner. I don't care. I don't care. Maybe it's lunch. Let's just like FaceTime. I need to see your face. It's that reconnecting. I call it, filling your joy tank with your friends, or even maybe to finish those projects that you've been pushing off. Yeah, I got a few over there. You can't see off camera. But yeah. So, but one thing that's really big with Mercury in retrograde is that it wants us to reflect on personal communication, how we speak, listen, and think. That's huge. So, here are some do's and don'ts over this, right? How to navigate Mercury in retrograde. Take extra precautions that things are running smoothly. Okay. So, dot those I's, cross those T's when you're working on a project. Don't go with the usual, oh, you know what? Tom's got it. He's good. I think we're fine. Nope. Circle back with Tom, go over the project again, and I can almost guarantee you there's going to be an issue that's going to come to light. And so make sure you are ever more present, especially working on any projects. Um, Here's a big one because of what happens with computers is back up those files. I mean, God bless Apple for telling me stuff that I have to do. So to save your work often, if you're working on, Word documents, anything, save it often. Okay. Double check those text messages. Let's be careful who you're sending it to. The emails. I know we've all sent it to the wrong person, but this is really mindful. Mercury retrograde, and really look over any important details before sending that email. Okay, that's really going to be important. Like I said, take the chance for the opportunity to to look back into your life, your old friends, finish those unfinished projects, and reorganize different areas of your life that need it. Um, like I said, I've been organizing all kinds of stuff, going through drawers, going through closets, um, and just saying, if it brings me joy and I've used it with the week, the month, the year, I keep it. If I don't, I let it go. It's just my way. Plus, I have a tiny little house that I don't that I don't have room for all that stuff. But keep a sense of humor, right? When you're in this midst of this, small little hiccups are part of the retrograde, and it's going to affect you in some way. And I find keeping a sense of humor in anything I do is important. So the don'ts. There's a few. They talk about not making major commitments, right, during this time. Do not sign any contracts, and God love uh, uh, my people for reminding me not to do that. Uh, Without reading the fine print thoroughly. Okay, and that means find somebody who can read it better than you. But really, try not to sign any contracts during this time. It's also a good idea not to launch any big ventures without triple checking, and I mean triple checking. You dot the I's, cross the T's 3 times. To steer clear of any of those impulsive decisions you might have that are made in frustration. It's like, oh, just get it off my plate, like it's done. No. And you're more apt to do that and have a problem when Mercury is in retrograde. Don't overreact when these things happen, right? I talked about keeping a sense of humor. Just say, Mercury's in retrograde. What the hell? Instead of thinking everything goes wrong during Mercury in retrograde, let's use a little better mindset and say this is a cosmic reset, a time to pause and review and then realign. Okay? So, That's a little tidbit, help, if you will, with life of Mercury retrograde. Here's hoping with those little bit of suggestions, you're armed with a better way to go about it. So here on Mediumship Moments, I always like to leave you with a mediumship moment. And I'm going to talk to you about Mercury retrograde and how it affected me. You know, I was in the midst of, let's go back a couple years ago, redoing my website. And let me tell you, between the photographers, the makeup, the hair, the set location, the just all of those logistics, there was a lot. There's a lot going on. And because, I plan things for events, for travel, things like that, we were looking at scheduling it in a gap in my schedule to do it, to take the time for the shoot, have all these people there, have everything lined up. And sure enough, it was falling during the heart of Mercury retrograde. And I, made the decision not to shoot during that time. And we turfed it to the following month. Now, Mercury retrograde 2 to 3 days before and after, you can have these hiccups and things. But I chose not to because I have conversely learned the hard way during Mercury in retrograde with signing a contract for something big that was out of my hands but had to be done. And I was on the phone with my lawyer at 10:45 at night, and I was like, you know what? As my mother would say, "Come hell or high water, I am not doing that again." So don't sign any damn contracts. Keep your communication as clear as possible and keep a little sense of humor as we all go through another retrograde. Um, and as always, I thank you for listening here. The mediumship moments. Keep chatting with your angels because they can hear you.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next time for another episode of Mediumship Moments. If you enjoyed this episode of Kim's podcast, check her out on Instagram and TikTok at Kim Dorham Medium.